Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a little bit of technical analysis on Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency markets, and more specifically, we're also going to be talking about the next Bitcoin bull run, because I've been quite vocal in my opinion that the majority of the 2018 bear market is now over, and that a new Bitcoin bull run will be starting in the next 6 months or so. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about where this Bitcoin bull run's breakout is, how this Bitcoin bull run is going to start, and talk about technicals and price targets for this Bitcoin bull run to try and get to the bottom of where we're going to end up at the climax of it. We're going to be talking about all of that and more in today's video, so without much further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. For the short-term technical analysis, we're going to be using the Coinbase chart because, as I've talked about in previous videos, at the moment, since Coinbase does trade over actual US dollars, its chart is more accurate, but we're going to be jumping around to the Bitfinex chart as well because the Bitfinex chart has a lot more price history than Coinbase does when we're looking at the longer-term technicals for Bitcoin. Wanted to go ahead and get that out of the way first and foremost. But here on the hourly chart, what we see for Bitcoin is that Bitcoin is above an ascending is in a symmetrical triangle pattern here, kind of trending upwards here against this long-term downtrend of resistance. And this is a very important downtrend of resistance. I'm not going to rehash how important this is, but this is a downtrend of resistance that Bitcoin's been under since about February of this year. So it'd be very, very bullish if we were to break that. And as I've said in previous videos, so I'm not going to go in too much detail on this. If you want more detail about the short-term technicals, you can watch a video in the top right. But as far as the short-term technicals are concerned, I do believe in the next 3 to 4 weeks, Bitcoin is going to be getting above this downtrend of resistance and starting a little bit of a rally that could potentially be leading into a new bull run in the way that we're going to be talking about in a second. But one way that we could potentially see that happen is if Bitcoin stays in this little triangle formation right here and eventually does actually get a break bullish out of it and goes above that downtrend of resistance. Getting above that downtrend of resistance would be extremely bullish, and I do believe that would be strong enough to kick off a short-term rally, which could then roll over into a Bitcoin bull run. Like I said, not going to get too in-depth with the shorter term technical analysis. We have videos on the channel about that, but running off of the assumption that we are going to get above this downtrend of resistance, because I do think that's what's most likely, and also running off of the assumption that Bitcoin is never going to go below $6,000 again, as I don't think that that is most likely, we're going to be talking about where Bitcoin would be going from there. If Bitcoin gets above this long-term downtrend of resistance, what I see happening is that Bitcoin is going to run up here and be testing right around $6,800 as this next major level of resistance. As you can see, this little wick right here, when Bitcoin ran up on the Coinbase chart as opposed to on the Bitfinex chart where Bitcoin ran all the way up there, we saw Bitcoin get resistance at about $6,800 right there, which correlates with a very important level of resistance at $6,800, and also right here around the 100 daily simple moving average, another important moving average that does actually play a major role in Bitcoin technical analysis, especially if you go back into the 2017 bull market when we saw downtrends and retracements. We normally got support on that moving average. It's an important moving average, and I do think it's going to become one again as we break a bullish out of this downtrend, break bullish above this downtrend, and we actually come up here and start testing it. I think we're going to see something like this happen where Bitcoin either breaks out right there or we come down here and break out right there, and we're going to come up here and see $6,800 and this 100 daily simple moving average be our major levels of resistance. From there, assuming we break that, because I do think in one way or another we will end up breaking these levels considering how important it is for Bitcoin to get above that downtrend of resistance, and I do believe a lot more bullish sentiment will flow back into the market following that. I do think we'll break that, and the next major levels of resistance after that are $7,400 flat, which is right up here. That is a previous high, and that is an extremely important level. So too is this moving average right here, the 200 daily simple. Now that's a very important moving average, as I've talked about in previous videos, because the 200 daily simple moving average is one of those moving averages that you can use to determine when a market has entered a new bull market. That is an extremely important moving average. And if we come back here, actually, this is where we're going to have to go into the Bitfinex chart. If we come back here in time on the Bitfinex chart, what we'll see is that when Bitcoin got above this 200 daily simple moving average, that being this bottom one right here, right around the time Bitcoin got above this right here, that was when the Bitcoin bull run of 2016 and 2017 started. If we zoom out, you can see that very clearly. That's right about there. And if we zoom in right here, that's where we crossed it. And nary a time did we go below it again until the beginning of this bear market right over here in very early February of this year. Getting above this downtrend, getting above this simple moving average would be extremely bullish, and getting above it and staying above it would be very, very good for the Bitcoin market. As you can see here on Bitfinex, because we've had some manipulation, if you want to call it that, because of Tether. We did briefly get above it, although I'm not really counting that because That didn't happen organically, but it did still happen. So that does give us an indication that we may be going up there to fill up this wick, if you want to say so, and getting above the 200 daily simple moving average. But from there, I do believe we're going to be getting above this in one way or the other. Like I said, it could take up to 3 or 4 months for us to get above this moving average, guys. It could take a while. These things do sometimes take a while, but I do think that Bitcoin is going to be getting above it. And after Bitcoin gets above this, I believe the bullish exuberance from breaking such an important simple moving average will be able to push us through $7,400. And pushing through $7,400 as a level of resistance is extremely important. Getting above $7,400 right here is very, very important because $7,400 is a previous high. And one thing that you need to do to set a new bull market in motion, guys, is to start setting newer highs, newer higher highs, and newer lower low, higher lows, So we want to see Bitcoin get back up here above $7,400. If we can get Bitcoin from where it's trading now around $6,400 up another $1,000 above $7,400, that would be an early warning sign of a new bull market. From there, what we want to see Bitcoin do is set some new higher highs and some new higher lows. So we want Bitcoin to come up here, so some higher highs, so some higher lows, higher highs, etc., 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 and start looking bullish. That is the short-term way that we're going to be getting into more bullish territory, and I do think something like that is going to play out over the next 3 to 4 months. It could happen in the next 24 hours. It could happen in the next 6 months, but I do think it's coming, and I do think it's coming soon. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and start getting into the longer term technicals for Bitcoin and try and get to the bottom of where Bitcoin is going to actually be going for this next bull run. Well, one thing that we can do to try and get an idea of where Bitcoin will be going in the next bull run is simply looking at the first bull run, or the last bull run, the 2016 and 2017 bull run, and extrapolating from there. If we were to say that Bitcoin was going to run the same amount percentage-wise as it did in this bull run, well, that'd be pretty easy to calculate actually, because the absolute bottom over here, for simplicity, in 2015, we're going to be calling it $200 instead of $160, whatever you want to call it. We're going to call the absolute bottom over here $200. $200 to $20,000 is a 100x growth. Very, very easy to do math on that. And when we see that the absolute bottom for Bitcoin over here is right around $6,000, we extrapolate out. And if we did our math in that way, I'll be explaining why we're not going to in just a second, we could say that Bitcoin's next bull run would bring us to a price target of $600,000. If we were to run 100% from our bottom, like we did in the last bull market, we would run all the way to $600,000. Now, let me explain why I'm not totally convinced that that's the most likely scenario before we get into the rest of the technical analysis. If you go and you do the math based on market capitalization and based on circulating supply for Bitcoin, what you find is that puts Bitcoin's market capitalization at north of $10 trillion. Now, while I do believe that Bitcoin is a viable enough asset to eventually warrant a $10 trillion market capitalization, I don't know that that is going to come in the next bull run. I believe that that may take 2 or 3 market cycles for Bitcoin or whatever the #1 cryptocurrency at the time is to actually warrant a $10 trillion market cap. I don't think all of that is going to come in the next bull market. With that said, at the peak of the last bull market, total cryptocurrency valuation was worth $830 billion. We almost broke $1 trillion. We're almost worth as much as one company on stock exchanges. So keep that in mind, guys. $1 trillion is not actually that much when we're talking about market value, market capitalizations for major assets and for major companies, etc., etc., etc. That's actually not a lot of money in the world of finance. Apple and Amazon, for example, are both worth around $1 trillion a piece, and they're one individual company. We're talking about Bitcoin, a global international payment system, which could very easily be worth that much in the future. But I'm not totally convinced we're going to go all the way to over $10 trillion in the next bull run. Keep that in mind. Now, from here, that leads us into something that I've been wanting to talk about for a couple of days now in the Discord server, and probably the person commenting first in all caps with an exclamation mark in the comment section down below will be a fellow named T. Clapson, and he has been a very big follower of the channel for quite some time now, and he is also in the Discord server, and in the Discord server, he posted this picture. So shout out to T. Clapson. If you haven't already joined the Discord server and you want to come talk to this amazing person and the rest of the amazing people in the Discord server, there's a link to join in the description down below. But he posted this chart here on the logarithm scale. And by the way, guys, I do look at the log scale. I just don't look at it very much when I'm doing short-term TA. Now that we're doing long-term TA, there are some important things we want to talk about here. But he posted this chart in the Discord server a couple days ago, and I thought it was so important to what we're talking about in today's video that I'd go ahead and include it. He posted this chart on Brave New Coin Liquid Index for Bitcoin, which shows pretty much the entire price history of Bitcoin. And as you can see, it has a couple of levels of support and resistance lines here that are important. This red line here, as he shows with these little arrows, is a very important one. We have some touches back over here. We have a touch there, there. And also, we see a touch up here at $20,000. And this is where his price target comes into mind, which actually plays into what I was talking about with $600,000. The way he has his targets drawn is that he would say that Bitcoin runs all the way up here to around $600,000 and gets resistance on that red line of resistance. Now, that's an interesting thing to point out, is that Bitcoin does tend to follow these kind of cycles. If you go back out here onto some very old charts, even Bitfinex isn't really old enough to do this properly. If you go back out to some of these old charts, you can see these uptrends right here, where Bitcoin has been getting a support on these uptrends and continuing to move in a very similar way for the entirety of the history of Bitcoin. It's moving basically in a straight line on the logarithm scale, if not obviously on the auto scale. But one of the reasons that I don't always subscribe to the log scale is that the log scale ends up giving you some insane valuations for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies if you extrapolate them out very far. And that's why I normally don't use the log scale, is because a lot of times it does just get absolutely crazy. Because the way the log scale works, it works off of exponentials. This isn't something that is going to be sustainable forever. For those, if you were to come to me 3 years ago, I would say, yeah, the log scale is a lot more valid then than it is now, in my opinion. And the reason for that is because, like I said, you start getting some insane valuations. As we can see here, the way that you would extrapolate out the next bull market from what T. Clamson draws here would say that we would be moving up to somewhere around $600,000 to $1.2 million in the next bull market. And like I said, while I do believe those are possible valuations for Bitcoin in the future, I don't know that those are the most likely valuations for Bitcoin in the next bull market. I do think that they're possible. I don't know that we're going there quite yet. Although I do think that what we are going to see is a six-figure Bitcoin in the next bull market. I'll go ahead and put my cards on the table a little early there. Anyway, with that out of the way, I did want to bring your attention to this chart, guys, because this is very important. As you can see, we have a long-term uptrend of support right here as well, with touches right over here, and right over here. And also, we're coming up to one right now, which is another one of those longer-term indicators that we may be getting some kind of bounce. And like I said, a lot of people ask me sometimes, Jeb, why don't you use the log scale? I do use the log scale. I just very rarely use it in videos because I feel it's much better used for much longer-term technical analysis, as is shown in this chart, which shows basically the entire history of Bitcoin's price action. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into some technicals, because there's a lot of different technicals that we want to talk about as it relates to the next Bitcoin bull market, this bear market, the last bull market, etc., that I want to draw your attention to. And a couple of them come, or actually most of them come out here on the weekly chart. So if we come out here to the weekly chart, and also to the monthly chart, there's some things I want to show you. If we bring our oscillators up down here, what we're going to see is quite interesting. One thing that we see on the RSI is that RSI actually has a very well-defined level of support and resistance right down here at the level of around 55 if you go out to the Bitcoin weekly chart. As you can see here, you can draw this level right down here around 53 to 55, and Bitcoin seems to always get levels of support and resistance on this level, and has done so for the last 2.5 years or so. As you can see, Bitcoin has levels of support and resistance on it a lot. Let's go ahead and move this up a little bit so we can see it. As you can see, Bitcoin has a lot of levels of support and resistance on. We have some support right here, right there, there, and then we have some resistance on it coming into this year. Resistance there, and there in the last major rallies. This appears to be a very major level of support and resistance on the weekly RSI, and an interesting thing would occur, in my opinion, if we were to get above it, because the majority of the 2016-17 bull market happened above this level on the weekly chart, and the majority of this bear market has happened below it. I feel that one of the different indicators that we can use to determine when a new bull market is starting is this level of support and resistance on the weekly RSI. I do believe if Bitcoin gets above this level on the weekly RSI, not only is that going to be very bullish for Bitcoin, it also probably indicates that Bitcoin has gone ahead and gotten above that 200 daily simple moving average that we talked about earlier. Both of those things I think would correlate very strongly, and I do believe that that would be extremely bullish for Bitcoin. So watch out for that as an indication for a new Bitcoin bull market. The next thing that we want to talk about is actually MACD. So let's go ahead and drag MACD down here. One thing that we've seen recently on the weekly MACD for Bitcoin is we've actually seen a bullish cross in the last couple of months. Right over here in September, we saw a bullish cross on the weekly MACD. And that is significant, guys. I think a lot of people have underplayed how important this is, but this is very significant. MACD is it's a very important indicator that a lot of people look at, especially on the weekly chart, and seeing this happen is a very big deal. And this hasn't really been a fake out. The histogram is continuing to get further and further away, in general anyway, and we've seen MACD continue to go more and more bullish. And remember, the last time that we saw a Bitcoin bullish MACD cross, let's go back in time here, below the histogram, the last time we saw that was over here in February of 2015. It's been 3 years since we've seen this kind of MACD cross, a bullish MACD cross below the zero line on the histogram, and the zero line is, of course, right here. That's the histogram right there. The last time we saw a bullish MACD cross was back over here in February of 2015. Let's look at what happened in February of 2015. Well, an interesting thing was happening at February of 2015, because if we drag our MACD down here a little bit, we see that February of 2015 is right around here. Right around here is the time we're looking at, and what does that correlate to? This correlates to the beginning of the accumulation phase at the tail end of the 2014-15 bear market. In other words, the last time we saw that happen was at the end of the last bear market, and we just saw it happen again. That's a very bullish indicator also, guys. When I talk about in these videos, when I say that all the technicals are looking bullish, I wanted to go ahead and make this video to prove to you guys that most of the technicals are looking bullish. These are the technicals I'm talking about. I'm not going to be able to get to all of them in today's video, but there are a lot of bullish technicals, guys. I've just shown you 2 of them. Well, actually, RSI isn't bullish yet, but I do think it's going to become bullish as Bitcoin breaks this downtrend of resistance. But that MACD cross is very significant, and I haven't seen enough people talking about it. The next thing that we want to talk about actually has to do with moving averages, and you guys know by now, or you should know if you've been watching the channel for a while, that I love myself some 20 daily and 20 weekly, 20 monthly, whatever interval exponential moving average. This is one of my favorite moving averages in all of Bitcoin technical analysis. So favorite, in fact, that I have an entire video dedicated to why I love it so much in the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy. If you guys are interested in CT2A, go ahead and click the link in the description and see the 20 videos that we offer. There's over 5 hours of content there. Guys, I am very happy with that product. If you guys are interested, click the link down below. But in that video, I talk about why I love the 20 exponential moving average so much, and I talk about on the monthly chart why I do. And one of the reasons I love it on the monthly chart as well is because the last time we saw Bitcoin get above the 20 monthly exponential moving average was right over here in November, in about October to November of 2015. And what happened in 2015 in October and November? Well, if you go back and you watch the video that I'll link in the top right that I did a couple months ago, you'll see that Bitcoin started the Bitcoin bull market back over here. So in other words, the last time Bitcoin broke bullish above this this exponential moving average was at the beginning of the 2016-17 bull market. And an interesting thing is happening right now. While we're not breaking bullish above it, we are currently getting support on this exponential moving average, and seeing that happen is a very bullish thing indeed. It's kind of been propping the market up here for the last several months here. As you can see, the market's tried to come back below this level several times, and while it's also been getting support on $6,000, I also think this 20 exponential moving average out here on the monthly chart has been giving us some support as well. Seeing Bitcoin stay above that is very bullish. If we do go below $6,000 and close a monthly candlestick down here somewhere, that would be very bad for Bitcoin, but I don't think that's what's most likely, as I've said so many times in this video. There's several other things we want to get to, guys. On the weekly chart, there's also something else. That would be also the 20 weekly exponential moving average, but we also, I believe, wanted to look at something out here. Actually, no, it was the 20 exponential moving average. If we look at the 20 exponential moving average out here on the weekly chart, we see another thing. When did Bitcoin first get above the 20 exponential moving average? At the same time that we did on the monthly chart. Back over here in October of 2015. That was the last time we broke above it. And nary a time did we go below it for the entirety of the 2016-17 bull market. As you can see, we never went below it, but we did get support on it. And right now, what we've been doing is we've been getting resistance at it. We've seen Bitcoin get resistance at it many times over the last year, and it looks like we're probably going to be getting above it if Bitcoin does play out that new scenario that I showed you in the beginning part of this video. If Bitcoin does come up here and start getting above $7,000, we're going to be above the 20 weekly exponential moving average. And I do think that that would be a very bullish thing indeed. We've seen Bitcoin kind of had fake breakouts above this level several times in this bear market, but if you look back at the last bear market, we have to come back to the Bitfinex chart. If we come back to the Bitfinex chart, we saw that happen once back over here before the main bull market started. We saw some false breakouts right here. Guys, like I said, all the technicals are looking very bullish. It looks like a lot of the volatility and a lot of the bearish sentiment in the market has mostly died off, and I don't think the bears are strong enough anymore to push us below $6,000, and that only really leaves us one place to move, and that's up. Because if we trade sideways, guess what's going to happen? Bitcoin is going to trade sideways straight through this downtrend of resistance, and that's going to bring bullish sentiment back into the market and push us even further north. Bitcoin cannot trade sideways anymore. It just can't. It can do it for another week or two, and then it can't do it anymore. Because if Bitcoin continues trading sideways, especially at the level that it's at here on Coinbase, it's going to break right through this downtrend of resistance, and you better believe that when we break that downtrend of resistance and confirm a break above it, we're going to see the bulls take over in a big way. That's a very important downtrend of resistance. We're not just going to break it and it be shrugged off by the bulls and the bears. It is an important downtrend of resistance, and when we see a proper break of it, it's going to be big. Bitcoin, I don't think, has the strength. I don't think the bears in Bitcoin have the strength to push us below $6,000 anymore. We can't trade sideways because we'll end up breaking bullish out of the downtrend of resistance because it's just that, a downtrend. And I believe that only leaves us one place to go, and that's north. Guys, I've talked about in many videos why I believe this is coming. Not only is it technicals, I've shown you many different technical reasons why I think this is coming in today's video. I also believe it's fundamentals. We talked about Fidelity getting into the market, a $7.2 trillion financial service juggernaut stepping into the market in yesterday's video. You can watch that video in the top right. We've talked about how ICE is launching backed in the next month. That is going to be huge. We've talked about how Bitcoin ETFs are coming to market in the next 2 years or so. They very well may be coming to market in the next 3 months. We'll see how the Van Eck ETF goes. The next couple of months, I do believe, are going to bring the start of the Bitcoin bull market, and I do believe that the next Bitcoin bull market will see Bitcoin run to over $100,000. That's my call. I do believe the climax of the next Bitcoin bull market will see Bitcoin trading at over 6 figures. Now, it's very hard for me to put a very exact, precise figure on that. I'm not going to say that Bitcoin's going to run to $323,000, $726.52. I'm not going to say that because it's very hard to predict these things with extreme levels of accuracy. But I do believe that Bitcoin is going to run to at least 6 figures in the next bull market, simply because of all the fundamentals that have continued to grow, how bullish the technicals are looking, etc., etc., etc. Tell me in the comment section down below if you guys agree with the sentiment that I've shared in today's video. Do you believe the majority of the bear market is over? Do you believe that we're going to break through $6,000? Do you believe that Bitcoin will be worth over $100,000 in the next 48 months? What do you think is going to happen here? Because I do think it's going to be bullish just about no matter what happens at this point. I believe most of the bear market is over. If we are going to break below $6,000, I don't know why we haven't done it yet. We've been much more bearish in times past. I think the next couple of months are going to be looking very bullish for Bitcoin. Like I said, if you haven't already joined the Discord server as well, and if you haven't already joined the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy, there's a link to do so in the description. If you click that link, then you can see what we offer. I am very, very happy with the product. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. I do want to thank each and every single one of you for watching as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.